You're listening to the Create What You Speak podcast, where I invite you to come along with me as we shape our own reality together. My intention is to bring out the magic in you. Now let's get started.
Run away from the humdrum. We'll go to a place that is safe from greed, anger, and boredom. We'll dance and sing till sundown and feast with abandon. We'll sleep when the morning comes and we'll rise by the sound of the bird song.
My name is Sloan Fremont, and today I'm going to talk to you about writhing in the discomfort.
100 bands in my pocket, it's on me. Yeah, your grandma will probably know me. Get more bottles, these bottles are lonely. It's a moment when I show up, God, I'm saying wow. Everywhere I go, catch me on the block like a Mutombo. 750 Lambo in the Utah snow. Trunk in the front like that shit Dumbo, yeah. Cut the roof off like a nip tuck.
Welcome to the Create What You Speak podcast. My name is Sloan Fremont, and I'm the host of the show. This week, we're going to be talking about writhing in the discomfort, and I'm going to give you an example of this in my own life. I'm also going to share a story about eating 2 different types of food in a row that I didn't like and what I learned from that. And I promise you there is a lesson in it. And I also have a great book resource to share with you about changing your thoughts. So all of that and possibly more on this week's show. A new episode of the Create What You Speak podcast goes live every Monday on Web Talk Radio and all of your favorite podcast applications. Make sure you subscribe in your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. And you can also visit my website, sloanfremont.com, or email me at sloanfremont@gmail.com with any questions, thoughts, topics, or anything you'd like to let me know about the show. And if you feel so inclined, I would love it if you would leave a review of the show on your favorite podcast player so other people can find me. All right, so our theme this month is I get to win. And so deciding that you get to win and you get to have what you want, and that I think that we've talked about this throughout this month, and that really starts with believing you get to win with the thoughts that you think, right? Like, so choosing to think those better thoughts that feel good, choosing to think those thoughts that, hey, things may turn out better than I can even imagine, right? It's not all doom and gloom and negative. So today I want to talk to you about, and I want to tell you a story in my own life about writhing in the discomfort and how that ties in with getting to win. So towards the end of last year, and I think I talked about it on this show, I decided I wanted to learn Spanish. So it's been something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but for whatever reason, didn't make the time. And anyway, I decided last fall that I was going to start. And I've been through about 3 rounds of classes. And then the place I was taking classes at here in Nashville, they had tried to move to classes online, and it was a real struggle. And anyway, they were going to, actually the whole program was going to close down due to budget cut. So that wasn't really working. And recently I found a new place to start taking classes again. And I was really looking forward to this because it was giving me something to focus on right now. Like, I've been talking about that over the past couple of weeks. So I've been struggling, and I'm sure, many of you are going through the same thing. And what I realized is I needed something else to focus on, right? So I was looking forward to this class to have that, something else for me. And so one of my goals with Spanish was that I want to become more conversational. Like, all up until now, what I had been learning in the classes was a lot of just memorization of words, right? Which obviously is important, but I really wanted to understand sentence structure so I could become more conversational. And so at the Language Center where I'm taking this class, I spoke with the director, and because I wasn't sure which class I should be placed in. I was like, I have a little experience, but I'm not conversational, and that's where I want to go. And so we talked through this, and she's like, you should be in this 1.4 level class. And I was like, okay, whatever that means. I really don't know your structure. So if you think so, she's like, yes, I think you'll do fine, because we had this intro conversation where I could pretty much converse with her. I didn't know a couple words, but I could pretty much converse. And she was confident that I would do well in this class. But if I didn't like it, I could always change later. So I was like, okay. So this night of the class comes, the first night, and I didn't really do anything to prepare. Honestly, the other class or the other place I had taken classes, just didn't require that. And I wasn't really sure what to expect. So I just came to the class, and I get on the call, and everybody is like immediately speaking what I would call fluent Spanish. There's like hardly any English going on here. The instructor is full Spanish, and all the students are what I would call fluent Spanish. Now, I've talked with some of them later, and they were like, no, I'm not fluent. And I'm like, yeah, you were. Like, I came on this call, and I'm like, holy shit. And I get in this class and the teacher is speaking Spanish, students are answering in Spanish, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck did I just do? Like, this is way above where I'm at with learning Spanish. And like, what the fuck? Like, what do I do? Right. And I'm just sitting there and I have no idea what's going on. I'm getting really like upset and flustered, and I'm trying to follow and I'm trying to use Google Translate. But of course I can't do that fast enough, which is with how fast the class is moving. And the teacher calls on me and I'm like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I'm sorry. I'm not sure why I was placed here. I think this is probably more advanced than where I need to be. And, I don't really know what's going on. And I was freaking out. Like, I was writhing in the discomfort. Like, this was so uncomfortable for me. Like, I wanted to immediately end the Zoom call. I wanted to just click out and be like, fuck it, I'm out, bye, done, and run away, right? And be like, no. But for whatever reason, I didn't do that. I stopped for a minute and I was like, okay, this is very difficult. This is very challenging for me, right? I feel on the spot. I feel embarrassed. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. And actually during the class, I'm emailing the director and I'm like, this isn't going to work. This is way too advanced for me, blah, blah, blah. So I sit there for a minute and I don't hang up because I'm thinking about it, as I think about just hanging up, I'm like, well, what does that mean after this, right? Like, I don't want to like be that person, or I don't want to just instantly give up and like have a bad like relationship with anybody, right? I want to give it a chance, but I'm super uncomfortable here. And so on the Zoom call that we're doing this, we do these like little breakout rooms where we break out into smaller groups to work on the activity. And the people I was paired with, they were asking me about my previous classes and what I had taken. And I'm like, I was telling them a little, but I'm like, you guys, I'm sorry. I'm probably not the one you want to get paired with because I don't know the answers. I don't know what's going on, and everybody was super nice. But the teacher comes into our breakout room a few minutes in and I'm talking and I'm explaining to him, I think this is too advanced. And, he's saying, I can tell you're upset. And, and I'm like, yeah, because I have no clue what's going on. Like, I don't know why I'm in this class. This feels like way too much for me. And he's like, well, most of these students have been with me since, the first level 1.1 class and they know my style, and all this. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, I'm just not sure this is for me. Maybe I need to go back to like 1.2 or 1.3. And so he's kind of talking through, what that means. And he's like, well, why don't you stay on and we can talk after class? And I said, okay, I'll listen, right? Like in my mind, I'm thinking I'll listen, but don't call on me anymore because I don't know the freaking answer, right? So again, the class goes on and I'm sitting there I'm a little more calm, but, I'm uncomfortable, right? This is not, I didn't like it at all. Like I felt like an idiot. I felt dumb. I felt like I'm the only one in the room that doesn't know what's going on. And all these thoughts are going through my head, right? Like, you dumbass. Like, why did you think you could do this? And I'm like, oh, fuck. So the class goes on and remember, I said to him, like, I just want to listen as we go through this. And so we go through another lesson and he calls on me again. And I'm like, fuck, like, what the fuck? Like, I told him I just wanted to listen. Like, why is he calling on me? And, I try to answer and I'm trying to do this and it's taken me time and I don't care. I'm just letting it take the time. Like, everybody can stare at me all they want. Like, I don't care. Like, this is the time it's going to take. And so I finally figure out what they're doing in this lesson, which is conjugating verbs, right? So it's basically working through like, any verb, like to have, to be, to dance, to go, to sleep, to whatever, and doing like the I, the you, the we, the he and she version of that. Because in Spanish, it's not the same. Like we say like I have, we have, you have, he has. Well, has I guess is different, but it's working through the Spanish version of that. And so, I'm going through this and I'm kind of doing it and okay. And so the class finally ends. And this whole like 2 hours is intense, right? Because I'm like paying attention and I'm like, fuck, like, is he going to call on me? Like, I don't want him to call on me, right? And I talked to the teacher and I explained to him my concerns. But what I started to notice as we're talking through this is that this class was actually pushing me to where I wanted to go, right? It was uncomfortable as fuck. Trust me. It was like, I hated it, but it's what I was asking for, right? I want to be conversational in Spanish. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to have to start having conversations, which is what the class was allowing me to do. Like, I'm not going to get there by continuing to just memorize words, right? And so And him calling on me again and not just letting me listen was part of that learning process. Even though I hated it, right? That was part of the process. And so I started to calm down a little bit. And as I'm talking through this with him, and I'm realizing that, okay, this is actually going to get me where I want to go. And so I decide that I'll stay in the class. And so we've actually had one more class since then. So I didn't quit. I didn't give up. But I wanted to, but I didn't. And so the point of me telling you this story was, as I look back through all this, I could see a couple of things that happened with this. That in my writhing, in my discomfort, that, I was telling myself all kinds of stories, right? Like, I'm sure you do the same, right? Like how I couldn't do this, how I was a dumbass, why did I think I could be this advanced in class, or, I should be in this lower level. And while I'm doing this, like, these stories are getting in the way of letting me actually settle into the new class and just try it, right? Just see what's going to happen. Like, these stories are getting me all worked up and flustered and freaked out. And I'm not just letting myself just settle in. And the teacher knew exactly what was going on, right? And that's why he called on me again. Like I mentioned, part of learning, and is especially in being conversational in any language, is you just have to you have to do the conversation, right? And just getting out of your own head and doing it and talking it and being put on the spot like that. That's how you learn. And, continuing to just memorize words until the end of time wasn't going to get me to that conversational level that I wanted to go to. So this class, which felt terrible and wrong and bad, and I wanted to run from it and click off the Zoom and be like, fuck it, and actually had me emailing the director to tell her that I was in the wrong class, it was exactly what I needed. It was what I needed to get there. That discomfort was part of that process that was going to help me to learn. And so I remember feeling like this when I entered the dance competition, which I talked about last fall. And I talked about it a lot because it was a 6-week dance competition that, talk about getting out of your comfort zone. But, I was a beginner, right? And being a beginner and, willing to not be good at something, it's not something we often do as adults. And so when we're placed in that position of, oh God, I'm not good at this, or this is hard, or whoa, I might look stupid, right? We perceive stupid, right? It's in our own mind. Nobody else thinks twice about it. But we just want to give up and we want to run away and quit and say it's not for me. But then later on, it's like we long for that thing that we gave up on, right? Like maybe you've experienced that where you wanted to do something, but you quit for whatever reason, but it still stayed with you afterwards because you still really wanted to be able to do it or experience it or go to it or whatever it was. And so that discomfort is actually part of that growth process. It's that it feels like we're just stuck in it. Like, oh my God, get me out of this. But that discomfort, if we can just settle down a little bit, that discomfort is what gets us to that next level, helps us change and grow into what it is that we really want. And so talking through this brings me to what I mentioned at the beginning of the show about eating 2 things in a row that I didn't like, right? This may seem like totally random and like, why would I bring this up? But here's why. Because, so I'm, whatever. I get things from the grocery store and I try 2 new things, right? One was this Hawaiian bagel and the other was coconut milk. Totally random things. But I ate the Hawaiian bagel, and I was like, God, this is gross. Like, I don't like this. This is too sweet. It's too blah, blah, whatever. I don't like this. Okay, throw it away. Then I got some cereal, and I put coconut milk in it, which I don't really like milk, but I can have a little bit. It's okay. But the coconut milk, I was like, damn, like, this is gross too. Like, this is so sweet. Like, I just don't like it. I don't know, for whatever reason, I just didn't like it. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, I just ate 2 things that I don't like. But I'm still unsatisfied, right? Because I'm still hungry. I still want to eat something. So I just move on to something that I know that I like to eat. And so I wanted to bring this up because this is a lot of times what happens in our own lives. Like we try something, we try one thing, it doesn't work. We try another thing, it doesn't work. And then we just quit, right? But in this example with food, like just because I tried 2 things in a row, it doesn't mean I'm going to give up on eating and never eat again, right? I mean, like obviously that's not going to happen. I'll just move on to something else and I won't really think about it. But why do we do that with the things in our lives that we really want, or the things that we want to try, or in areas that we want to grow, right? Like when we try something new, like Spanish class or dance, and we don't get it right the first time, we just want to quit. We just want to give up. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we actually do that. But why do we put this pressure on ourselves to do it right the first time, right? Like, obviously, if I knew how to dance or I knew how to speak Spanish, I wouldn't be in the class. So why can't we just let ourselves be the beginner, right? Like, how are we supposed to know how to do it, right? That's what the class is for. And so it's like, I feel like with myself, and maybe you can recognize this too, it's like, I feel like I have to win in my hobbies too, right? So like, why can't I just relax a little bit and let it be fun? Right? Like, why? And I think that's what I learned from this whole thing of writhing in the discomfort was, hey, like, okay, all right, this is new. You're learning. It's okay, right? It's okay to suck. It's okay not to have all the answers. It's okay to be slow in your answers or mess up even. It's fine. It's all fine, right? It's part of the process and there's nothing wrong or bad. And I'm not stupid or dumb or, incompetent or shouldn't be in this class as a result, right? It's all a process and it's all meant to get us where we want to go. And so I think this is easy to look back at, right? It's easy now that I'm away from it. It's been a couple weeks and I can look back at it and I can talk to you about it and I can tell you what I learned about it. But what do we actually do in that moment when we're writhing in the discomfort, right? Like when we're in the moment and it feels so impossible and so terrible and so like, I just want to click out of the Zoom call and be like, fuck it and never, do it again. Like, what do we actually do? So this brings me to the last part of this week's show that I mentioned in my intro about the book I found to be quite helpful recently. The book is called Detox Your Thoughts by Andrea Bonior, Bonior. I'll link to all this in the show notes. But I first found her on this podcast and it's this podcast I listened to. It's called Something You Should Know. And I really liked what they talked about on that podcast, so I bought the book. But really what resonated with me in this beginning, and I'm not through the full book yet, but she talks about when you feel those thoughts come up, like, right, like when you're writhing in the discomfort or when you're feeling those shitty thoughts or, you're just like, those thoughts are just like incessant and they won't stop, that to start to talk to yourself in the third person. So I know this might sound silly, but let me give you an example. So here I am in the Spanish class, right? And I'm feeling stupid, like I can't do it, like I'm in the wrong class. So here's something that I might say in that moment to, calm myself or make myself feel better in the moment. So talking to myself in the third person. So this is what I would say to myself. So Sloane is having thoughts that she can't do this Spanish class. Okay. But we know that isn't true. She can do it. She learns quickly. She's smart. She has a strong desire to learn Spanish. And this class is going to help get her there to be conversational, right? So instantly what I felt when I did this was it starts to disarm me. It disarms my own self from myself, from those thoughts that want to run wild. And in taking it into the third person, it made me feel like I was an outsider to that thought. Like I just didn't automatically assume that the thought was true. And it helped me see it as if I was talking to a friend or someone else about it. And it helped me to answer objectively too, right? Because when I'm in it and I'm like, oh my God, you're stupid, you're dumb. Why am I here? I'm so dumb. I'm like when I'm taking it on as I am, like, it's been said, I am is one of the most important sentences in the English language because after I am, whatever comes next, you're going to believe, right? So I am stupid. I am dumb. I can't do this, whatever. Taking it to the third person, it helps you pull yourself out of it and be like, wait a minute. No, this actually isn't true. It interrupts the pattern and it stops those, this automatic domino effect of shitty thoughts that just want to pile on. So I found that to be super helpful, just taking it out into the third person and talking to myself in that way. Like, you can do this with anything, right? Like if you start to feel anxiety about something or whatever, like Sloane's having anxious thoughts right now about being in isolation still. Okay. She knows this has happened before and she's got some tools that she can use to start to address that. Right. And you can start to, you see it objectively and it's, I found it just to be so helpful. So I'll link to the podcast that I listened to and the book in the show notes so you can learn more about it, but give it a try. Like this is something you could try like right now. Like just as you stop listening to this podcast, you can try right now and see how it works for you. And I know it really helped me tremendously this week. And so I hope it does the same for you. So as we're winding down the show and as you move forward this week, can you see anywhere in your own life that you're writhing in the discomfort, that you're just in this area of, it just causes so much discomfort? And is it possible that this discomfort may just be part of the path that gets you to the thing that you want, right? It may be what's needed to move you into that new version of yourself or the new version of whatever it is in your life that you want. And, we often have to experience change to get to that next level. And we can, really want to resist that. But that discomfort and that change that we go through is actually a good thing. And it can help you if you let it. So that's it for our show this week on Writhing in the Discomfort. I'm going to wrap up with our magical intention. I'll talk about the songs I chose, and I'll close us out. I started the show today talking about writhing in the discomfort. That was the topic. And I gave you the example of the Spanish class I took and how I felt overwhelmed on the spot, embarrassed, and so much more, and how much I was just writhing in the discomfort of that. But once I was able to take a step back from it, I was actually able to see that this class was what I needed. It was what was going to help me get to the next level. And the discomfort, it wasn't bad. It wasn't a reason to give up, right? It wasn't. It was actually helping me if I could let it. And I also shared the story of eating 2 different types of food in a row that I just didn't like. And just because I didn't like them, it didn't mean I was going to never eat again or I was going to give up on eating, right? No, I was just going to move on and try something else. And so why do we do that in our own lives when something doesn't work, right? Like, why do we just accept defeat so easily? Having something not work or making, not work or feeling like it doesn't work, it doesn't mean we should give up. It's often just the thing that we need that's going to get us to the next level where we want to go. And lastly, I shared the practice of stepping away from your thoughts by talking to yourself in the third person, which I learned from the book Detox Your Thoughts by Andrea Bonior. I'll link to all of that in the show notes this week so you can find out more. So your magical takeaway this week is a quote I got from the Moon Omens Instagram page. I talk about them a lot. I like a lot of the quotes that they have. And the quote was this: "There is grief in change. Be careful not to mistake grief for a sign that you're doing the wrong thing." All right, that's it for this week. Before I'm going to talk about the songs, but I want to remind you of my course, 33 Days of Magic. I have actually so it's on my Etsy store, but I also opened up a Shopify page because I'm going to be adding a lot more courses, and I really like the arrangement of it. So if you go to SloaneFremont.com and you click shop, you're going to see that page. I also have a new course coming soon called the BS Method, and I will be telling you about that very soon. But 33 Days of Magic it's really meant to help you it's the practices I use to change my own life. And what I want to do is be able to give that to you in an easy to use format, a template. I have everything laid out for you. I have a 46-page workbook. There's the steps where you create your magical vision. I have a magic method that I teach you and so much more. So if you're interested, visit 33daysofmagic.com. All right, songs for this week. The intro song I chose is called Wow by Post Malone. Okay, first off, that Dorito commercial where he's on it all the time and his Post Limon plays all the time. And I watched that the other day because, sometimes I just hear the song and I like the song. I like the song. I like the beat and the tune. But I was looking at him on that show on that commercial, and on that commercial he gets a Dorito tattoo on his cheek or whatever, and he has all these face tattoos. And I was like, why does he have all those face tattoos? Like, why does he have those? Like, that's something that for some reason, like, I have nightmares about somebody giving me a face tattoo. I don't know why it's like a thing. Like, and I was very curious about that. So I looked that up about him, and I read an article that he did where he talked about that, about why he has them. And he talked about growing up and how he would cry himself to sleep like every night in junior high and high school. And in his own words, he thought he was ugly. And he felt like the tattoos gave people something else to look at, so they didn't have to look at his face. And that broke my heart. Like, I don't know, that made me really sad for him, that's how he viewed himself. And I don't know, maybe that makes him feel better, and that's great, and I hope it does. But I just, that was really touching to me to listen to, to read. And so, I don't know. Anyway, that was something I read. And anyway, I like the song. So intro song, Wow by Post Malone. Outro song is called Players Ball by Outkast. This is one of my favorite all-time Outkast songs. I love remembering this Outkast show I went to, and this was in the year 2000. I remember it because I had just graduated from college, and we went to Chicago. And this was 20 years ago, right? So Outkast had like 50 people on the stage, and everybody was in like all these colorful clothes, and it was still one of the best concerts I've ever been to. And this is one of my favorite songs by them, Players Ball by Outkast. All right, So that's it for this week on the Create What You Speak podcast. Our topic was writhing in the discomfort. And if you have questions, please feel free to email me, sloanfremont@gmail.com. If you have anything you want to talk about, I would love to hear from you. If you like the podcast, remember, subscribe, rate, review. And thanks for listening this week. And remember, you get to win.
Let's go.